I'm an alcoholic. My name's Gordon Rail. It's a pleasure to be with you. Fellow that helped me in the beginning, I work at Fellowship Hall part-time. And he said that it's okay to say where you work. And if you work in treatment, that's fine too. But you work at Fellowship Hall. You stay sober in Alcoholics Anonymous. And don't ever get that mixed up. So thank you all for being here. And yeah, I've met several folks here tonight that were at the Charm School in Greensboro. So I'm glad to be with you, and I'm glad you all are here. Thank you for having me. Waylon, appreciate you a whole lot. Very grateful to be here. I know you all hear enough of I've been here too many times, perhaps. I don't know. We'll see. But I am grateful, very grateful. I'm grateful for this group. I'm grateful for this whole area down here. There were some people from this part of the country that had a great deal to do with me getting going in this program. I had a wonderful sponsor, a guy named Harry J., and he got sober here, and he ended up in Wilmington, and he helped me awfully good. Wonderful friends, George and Clarice, were very instrumental in my early recovery, and of course Tom I. And the first time I heard Tom, I was in a halfway house in Wilmington, and he drove down there to speak, and I couldn't figure that out. Why in the world would a man drive all the way from Aberdeen to Wilmington to speak to us in a halfway house? And I loved his enthusiasm toward the program and his sense of humor, and I love the fact that he wasn't ashamed of being an alcoholic, and the way he handled himself. He just wore his alcoholism so comfortably, and I was so ashamed of myself, where I'd ended up, in a halfway house, and didn't know squat, of course, about alcoholism, or didn't know what had happened to me at that time, but I was impressed. And I walked up to Tom after the meeting, and I said to him, "Where are you staying?" And he said, "What?" And I said, "Where are you spending the night?" He said, "Oh, I'm driving back to Aberdeen." I thought, good gracious. I just didn't compute, for me, so whatever. But I stayed awake that night thinking about how happy he was, and I really admired that, and I liked that. So the attraction, laughter's healing, isn't it? It sure is. And so they say a man has conquered himself when he can laugh at himself, I guess. So there it is. Anyway, let's get with it. I was born in Siler City over here, not too far away. I'm 78 years old, so that was 1941. I grew up in a wonderful time, and I should have had a wonderful time, but my inventory in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous has made it really, really clear to me, and I understand now that I had this self-centered fear that just plagued me. And still in all, I got along pretty good. I came up in a time when we would leave town to go to White Lake for the weekend, and my mother would say, "Leave the door unlocked in case somebody comes by." I didn't even know there was a key to the front door to our house till I was probably 16 years old. When I was 5 and 6, I had to run to the town. All I had to do was be home before the dark. That's the way it rolled. And Highway 421 went right through Siler City, and the deal was that you gathered at the Texaco station, and that man walked you across the highway, and when you got ready to come back, the man at the Gulf station walked you back across the busy highway. So I was, I grew up in a wonderful time, as far as Siler City. And wish I could do it again, because I could really take advantage of it now that I know what I know because of being with you and my inventory in this program. So, but I still enjoy my memories there. Didn't drink during high school because I played ball. I played football and basketball and baseball and American Legion baseball all summer. And back in those days, they said they'd throw you off the ball team if you drank. Or smoked cigarettes, for goodness sakes. So I guess my ego was well taken care of running around that school with a monogram jacket on or running out on that basketball court or whatever. I just didn't drink. Went away to a small college called Campbell College. Wasn't good enough to play ball at that level, and I was the 13th man on a 12-man basketball team. That means I practiced all the damn time, but I didn't get to dress for the game unless somebody was sick. And running up and down the steps one day doing those exercises, and I don't get one dime for playing basketball. And I thought, you know what, this doesn't make sense. And so I ran down the steps and out the end of the gym, and I never went back. So, I had a roommate who was a sophisticated guy. He was from a big town, Greensboro. And he asked me one night, "Do you drink?" I said, "Well, what do you think I am, some little hillbilly or hick or something? I'm sophisticated." I'd bought me an umbrella by then. I could walk around. He took me over to a place called Doug's Tavern in Dunn, North Carolina, and I'm glad it was dark in there. College girls in there too, by the way, college guys and college girls. And he ordered a Miller High Life, and I'm a quick study, so I ordered a Miller High Life. I'm quick. And that stuff's coming out of my nose and ears and eyes. Tastes awful. And he looked over at me and said, "How you doing?" And I said, "Great. I'm doing great." I always just wanted to get along, you know, and be part of and blend in. And but that's the night that brought me here with you. I caught a little buzz, and I started enjoying going back to Doug's. And it wasn't long before people said, "Let Gordon drive. Gordon can handle his beer." You can hardly tell Gordon's been drinking. So, you know, my relationship with alcohol was a love affair, and I couldn't do it all the time, of course. I didn't have the money or opportunity or transportation or whatever, but I enjoyed doing it every time I could do it, and I look forward to the next time. You know, that was the beginning of it all for me. In a real serious automobile accident in my sophomore year, after my freshman year, I went out to the West Coast working in a wheat harvest and drinking every day, a daily drinker, just because I had the opportunity. When I came back to school that fall, I couldn't get with it. I wasn't kind of a duck out of water or whatever. I wasn't interested. I was just all over the place. I was in a pretty serious automobile accident between Thanksgiving and Christmas. Stayed in the hospital for 3 months and didn't walk for almost a year. Went back to Campbell College the next year, and they treated me like a hero. And I had a walking stick, and if you don't watch me, I'll drag that leg around here tonight a little bit. And they have a disability as a result of that automobile accident. I would have flunked out of school if it hadn't have been for the accident. I got out with no grades. I wasn't going to school. I wasn't going to class. But as a result of that, me going back, I'd been a PE major. All I ever wanted to do was be a coach. I had a coach in high school who was really, really important to me and spent an awful lot of time with me. And I just wanted to be a coach. And after the wreck, I didn't know what to do with myself. I couldn't be a coach. I couldn't show kids how to do things. And so I kind of flopped around a little bit more. A lot of my friends were getting married, and I met a girl, and she liked me, and I liked her, and we got married. Never knew how to manage money. Never thought much about it. The only thing I know about money is when you don't have any, you need some more. And I didn't worry about it till I ran out, you know, or whatever. Wasn't long before I had us in kind of tight place financially, and we moved up to Winston-Salem, and I went to work on a truck dock at night and went to school during the day. And I would stop people on the street, probably, and tell them that I was working raising a family because my wife was pregnant with our first child, going to school, making more money than my daddy made. But what I wouldn't tell him is I had to go borrow from him about every 6 weeks because I couldn't manage it. And I'd go to my daddy and I'd say, Daddy, so and so and so. He'd say, well, son, I thought you maybe would come to pay me what you borrowed last time. And I said, well, no, I need a little more. What do you think the problem is, son? I'd say, it's that woman, Daddy. She wasn't raised the way we were. So, my wife didn't even know where I was when I was down there borrowing that money. So I've got a secret life from as long as I can remember, secret life. So anyways, I progressed. I got a great job out of school with a trucking company. They gave me an assignment in Winston-Salem, home office. 200 and some salesmen wanted that assignment, and I got it. Very lucky, very fortunate. But I'm afraid they're going to catch up with me. I'm drinking a bit. I write a bad check every now and then, and I'm just afraid. So I asked to be transferred out into a field assignment, and they moved me down to Florence, South Carolina, at my request. They couldn't believe that I wanted to leave the home office, but I told them I wanted field experience. I was just scared that they'd find me out, that I wasn't adequate, I wasn't up to it, I couldn't do as good as I should, or what they expected, or whatever, I don't know, but I ran. Got down to Florence and do what I always do, or used to do. I start off like a house of fire. I make a good first impression, but I don't last because I don't have any staying power. I've started thousands of things and finished few. Finished few. But I started off and I put that little trucking company, that terminal on the map, and put it in the top 5 of the company, and just was looking really, really good. And then I got bored. I started slacking off and finding all the watering holes and joining everything that sold where you could get a drink. Don't mean to be offensive to anybody, but I love the JCs. Love those paper drives and all. They drink. Love to go to meetings because they have a cocktail hour, happy hour. One time they tried to promote me. I was a vice president, and I was okay with that. But then they tried to promote me to president, and I said, no. I don't mind being the second banana, but I don't want to be in charge. No. So I was looking good on the outside, but I was starting to come apart more and more and more. As I look back on it, summing it up, it's so simple really. The older I got and the more responsibility I should have been able to take, the less I was able to handle things. I'm just going to tell you about a day or two in my life when I was in my mid-20s. By this time I've got 3 children, and my wife has had to go back to teaching school because of the mess I've got us in financially. I've just got us in a mess. And I would wake up and get up, and I would start cooking breakfast for that family. I mean, that's what a good husband would do, and that's something, especially when you get hung over as I am and got that greasy bacon going up your nose. That's quite a sacrifice, being there cooking. And about the time I get it about ready, I call them and wake them up, and out the door I go, because I don't want to talk to my wife, get that chin music about why I was so late coming home last night or whatever. I don't want to hear it. So out the door I go. I go to my office and look at my mail and all the stuff, see who's looking for me, and then I go check other people's desks to see what they got to say about me, if anything, and nobody's there but me, you see. And then I get out of there before anybody gets there. I go hide behind a service station that's on the road from where I live and go on in there, and they sell beer in there, and at 7:30 in the morning when my wife is riding by to take those 3 kids to nurseries and school and take herself to school, I'm standing in a wash bay drinking a beer with a 3-piece suit on. And as soon as she goes by, I go out to a payphone and I call my office and tell them I'm about 50 miles out of town, got a big day planned down in Orangeburg or Charleston or somewhere, and I'll see them this afternoon. And they try to talk to me, and I hold the phone out with the cars going by and pretend I can't hear them. And then I'm good to go. I can go back home now. So I go back home, and tomorrow's going to be different. This is the last day we'll ever do anything like this. Won't do this tomorrow. But today, I've got to get it together. One of the reasons I had to go home is I have bad check charges coming in. I have credit cards my wife doesn't know anything about. And I got to collect the mail. So I'm a traveling salesman and can't travel till I get the mail, at home. So I go back and I make a few phone calls to some very important customers, and I tell them I'm in the area, real busy. If you need me, I'll come by. And, oh, no, we're fine. I got those tickets coming to you for the Masters golf tournament or the football game in Columbia or whatever, and so I'm taking care of business. But the only problem is I'm doing that on my home phone, and I can't get reimbursed for that. And that's one of the reasons I'm home, is trying to pick up the phone bill. When I got to AA, they told me that when you want to get out of the hole, quit digging. And so what I'm doing is digging that hole every day. Once I get that done, then I can go out and drink, because I can't stand to be by myself. I can't stand myself. And so I go out either to a club that I belong to, or maybe some little bar somewhere where nobody knows me or whatever, and I drink. And about 5 o'clock, I go back to the phone booth and call the office and tell them that I've had a great day. I'm about 50 miles out of town, and I'll see you in the morning. And then I go, and if I'm very fortunate, I end up in my neighborhood riding around drinking. I don't go home. I can't go home, but I ride around and around and around. Not my street, because I don't want my kids or my wife to see me, but around and around. And then I drive up in the driveway, and I go on in with a pint in my hand, and my wife says, "You've been drinking." And I say, "Well, I've had a hard day." And I have had a hard day, haven't I? With all that ducking and dodging and whatever, living a lie and doing what I'm doing. I stand before you tonight with regrets about a lot of things. One of them is that I lived in that house with 3 wonderful little children, and I've gone for 5 and 6 days and not seen those children awake. I would come in after they went to bed at night and leave before they got up in the morning. I've gone in their bedroom late at night and sit and looked at them with a drink in my hand, saying something like, "What is going to happen to us? I can't possibly keep this up. What's going to happen?" My wife and I had separated a couple of times, and then finally one day she said to me that, she wanted me to leave. And another sick attitude, I felt relief. It wasn't my fault. She told me to leave. And I thought, I'm going to be okay now. I'm going to be okay. And for the next 5 years, I almost died. I drank. I went from Delaware to Florida and places in between. My inventory says that I had 28 jobs during that 5 years. Some of them I had 3 times. But there it is. I got locked up a lot. I was in a couple more car wrecks, one of them really, really very serious. At Myrtle Beach, I almost killed myself. And I just about died from my drinking. I was in Delaware, and I was afraid I was going to die. And so a fellow had tried to help me in Whiteville, North Carolina. I had used AA one time before to get out of jail in Columbus County, and the people treated me very, very nice. They spoon-fed me this program as far as explaining it to me and tried to be very nice to me, and as soon as I got the heat off of me from the legal charges and whatever, I took off. They begged me not to go, and I took off anyway. And of course, I was staying sober on the power of the pack and fear of the legal stuff that I was under, and I didn't have any program of recovery inside, and I drank almost immediately. But I remembered those guys, and I called down there, and they told me about a halfway house in Wilmington that they suggested that I go head for, and they would call and tell them about me. I don't know how long it took me to get on the bus. Sometimes I'd go to the bus station drinking too much, and they wouldn't let me get on the bus. Sometimes I'd get the days and nights mixed up, and I was supposed to be down there at 6:30 in the morning, and I'd go down there at 6:30 in the evening. Had to watch the street lights to see if they were coming on or going off, as far as my drinking, the way I was drinking. And then sometimes I wouldn't have enough money and I wouldn't even try. But I finally got on the bus and I rode to Wilmington. And I presented myself at that halfway house, and they're in there doing the intake, I guess you'd call it, to see if they were able to handle me or not, or take me or whatever. Now remember, I haven't got two nickels to rub together. I mean, I don't have nothing going on. And I got through the first question or two, and they asked me where I lived, and I said 512 West Park Drive, Siler City, North Carolina. He said, "Oh, I thought you came here from Delaware." I said, "I've been traveling." And he said, "Well, who's tending to your house for you?" Now, this was this guy named Harry. He was messing with my head. I didn't know it. I said, "What?" See, when I don't want to answer you, I get dumb. I get real dumb. Huh? I started huhing him, and he said, "Who's keeping that house for you in Siler City?" I said, "Well, my mom and dad are there." He said, "Well, I'm confused." He said, "Whose house is that?" I said, "Well, huh?" "Who paid for it?" Well, if you put it like that, my daddy did, but he said he was going to give it to me. I won't back down. I won't give up. So he moved on, and then he got to the next hard question. He said, "Gordon, do you have any children?" I went, "Huh? Do you have any children?" And see, then I answer a question with a question when I don't want to go there. I said, "What have they got to do with this?" He said, "I don't know. The question says, do you have any children?" I went, "Well, I don't want them to know anything about this." He said, "Man, you're wearing me out. Come on, let's go get a cup of coffee." We were sitting in the dining room drinking our coffee, and he reached over and put his hand on my hand. Later, he told me he did that so I'd make eye contact with him. Well, I damn well did. And he grabbed my hand. He said, "Gordon, it sounds like to me you've got some children that you love a lot. And if you do, you've come to the right place." He said, "My children were in steps 8 and 9 of the 12-step program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And that's where your children are. Are you willing to do the work?" Now, I was mad at about every adult in the world and justified with my stuff or rationalized or whatever you want to call it, but I could not get away from those children. I couldn't drink enough to make it go away. I couldn't make it okay. They'd never done a thing to me except love me, and I couldn't put anything at their doorstep, and it haunted me because the way I was raised is that a man that doesn't take care of his family or his children in particular is not a man. And I was not able to see my children because of my behavior and my drinking, and I was not allowed to see them at that time. And so I was in really bad shape. But at the same time, I think that probably that thing about that unfinished business with those children that I couldn't shake off or get rid of or drink away or do whatever kept me alive. Because I didn't want to. I never tried to kill myself. There's been many a night I've gone to bed and didn't care if I woke up or not. But when I thought of those children, I couldn't shake loose from that. So at times I would think I don't want to die and those children have the memory of me of being a drunk, no good. And so it messed with my head, drinking or not drinking. So Harry told me the truth, didn't he? He told me the truth. After I was in that halfway house for a while, I did what I was told with my good friend Harry, and I went over to get straightened up in court about the child support, and I did what the AA people said do. You know, just tell the truth. Standing outside the courthouse waiting for court, a deputy sheriff borrowed my cigarette lighter and stole it. I got to have one more cigarette before I go in that court. That rabbit blood's rising up in me and I'm wanting to run. So I said, surrender prayer, surrender prayer. And I went across the street and there was a green lighter up on the wall, and I asked for it and they put it on the counter, and I said, wait a minute, I'm not buying a lighter that's got writing all over it. I picked it up and it said, easy does it, but do it. I bought 5 of them and stuck them in my pockets to give to my friends back in AA in Wilmington. Went into court. Boy, they raked me over the coals. My inventory's in the courthouse in Whiteville, North Carolina, for anybody to see. And then the judge looked down at me and he said, Mr. Rail, you don't drink anymore, do you? And I said, I haven't been drinking, Your Honor. He said, will you promise me you'll never drink again? And I did what you all told me. I said, Your Honor, there's nothing I want more than that, but I can't promise that. And he said, right answer. Right answer. So he gave me a break he cut the child support for 90 days, and he told the people in the courtroom that they had to give me a little bit of, they had too much pressure on me right now, that if I was going to, as long as I was doing what I said I was doing right now, he wanted to give me a little time. And he did what's called a be-back, a 90-day be-back. And I never missed a child support payment from that day till the last day that my youngest child left home. Thank you. Alcoholics Anonymous. Got to see my children, and guess what they're doing? They're calling me Daddy Gordon. Daddy Gordon. I got a husband-in-law by that time, and they're calling him Daddy. I am upset. Y'all probably don't remember payphones, but there used to be payphones. And as soon as they were Daddy Gordon, Daddy Gordon, Daddy Gordon, I went to a payphone, called my sponsor, Harry. He said, you haven't said anything to those children, have you? I said, not yet. He said, it ain't their fault. Please don't. Please don't. They got to live by the rules. And by the way, it's part of the reason that they live the way they live now because of your drinking? Well, maybe. So anyway, I kept my mouth shut and I said serenity prayer. Serenity prayer. The oldest of those kids dropped off that Gordon stuff after about 2 hours, and it was Daddy. And I thought it took them 2 years to get them programmed, and it took God 30 minutes to get it out of them, or 2 hours, or whatever. So keeping your mouth shut's good. On the way in that evening, the youngest little boy, 4 years old, 5 years old, he tugged on my sleeve and he said, Daddy, we've had a real good time. I hope we can do it again real soon. From the mouth of a babe, I was able to keep my mouth shut and not go up and blow their doors off when I took the children in about what they were doing, about what they were training those children. So I learned from a little 5-year-old, and the last little piece I needed that day to walk away from that. And that's the way it was. That's the way it was. Now, I've got a daughter 53 years old, and you don't think I wish I had one of those Saturday mornings back when those kids were 8, 9, 10, 12 years old? And I told them that. And my oldest daughter, and I told her several years ago that I was so sorry for the way I treated them, telling lies about having to go to work and doing this, that, and the other, when all I was doing was drinking. And then I'd tell them, I'll make it up to you next Saturday. No big deal. Of course, y'all know what happened next Saturday, and the next Saturday, and the next Saturday. Ad nauseum. And I said, I wish there was a way I could make it up. She said, you can. She had 2 little children, and she shoved them right at me. She said, take these. So I don't know if y'all know much about them little ones. They ain't got no slow button at all, and they don't have a stop button, and they wore me out. But I loved every minute of it. So can you pay things forward? Yes, you can. Thank you for this program and you people. So anyway, I met my wife Jo in Alcoholics Anonymous in Wilmington, and we've been married 38 years. Not a record, but it's a pretty good deal. You know, it's been the dangest thing. I'm thinking about how fast time goes by. You know, how fast. It's been something. But anyway, we started sparking in AA and went and talked to our sponsors, and they couldn't pull us apart, so they, helped us do the right thing. And we've been together. Because of Jo in my life, the children were allowed to come and stay with me and her at different times, live with us a while. Sometimes it was good, sometimes it wasn't. They didn't last a long time, but it was all good. We moved to Greensboro in 1985. I got an invitation to come to work at Fellowship Hall in Greensboro, and we went. And that's returning to the scene of the crime for me, because Siler City in Greensboro had been one of the places that I was so ashamed of because of the way I'd acted. But I wasn't ashamed anymore, and I'd made the financial amends that I did what my sponsor said. I didn't know I'd ever be returning to this part of the country, but I made the amends, and thank goodness I did, because as it opened up, when I got the chance to come to Greensboro, I could come. It was okay. And so we came back. And I've, in one way or another, I've worked with alcoholics and addicts for over 35 years. My sobriety date's January the 15th, 1980. And anyway, I was reading something. This is a good time of the year, isn't it, as far as gratitude and things like that. And I was reading the simplest thing, and I don't know how many times I've read this, but this season I'm kind of carrying it around like a little mantra, if you will, and it goes like this. It says that happiness comes from gratitude. Gratitude comes first. Happiness doesn't bring gratitude. Happiness comes after gratitude, as a result of gratitude. And I believe that. I believe that. So anyways, working through the steps with my sponsor and trying to do this has just gotten better and better and better, of course. And a wonderful speaker, a man named Bryant B., who was a hero. I've never heard him get behind this podium without saying, that the greatest thing that ever happened in the life of this alcoholic, he said, is Alcoholics Anonymous. And I didn't know what he was talking about when he said it, but I do now. I didn't know what he and a lot of the others were so happy about their lives and enjoying their lives. But I hung around, and I do now, and many of y'all know. I was reading a little thing in the big book the other day, and one of the stories, and there was a little blurb in there about a 30-day man says to a 30-year man, I wish I had your 30 years. And the 30-year man says, I'll trade with you right now. And I know what that means too. The journey is the joy is in the journey. Now sometimes hindsight, of course, is 20/20, and life is lived forward and understood backwards. But I dare say that many of y'all have been faced with things that as you look back at it, it was as it should be, and it really worked out beyond your wildest dreams. And that's been what has happened to me and for me. I could stand up here and tell you that I have changed, and that would be true, I'm sure. I was able to get, to square things away with my mother and father, and I didn't see them for over 2 years when I was in the last of my drinking. I didn't lay eyes on them, and but as I got sober and was able to go back to them and understand what I understand about my alcoholism, it was a much better relationship than it had ever been in our lives toward the end of my mother and father's life. My mother was tough on me. She said that my drinking looked like suicide on an installment plan. She was rough. My father had to ask me to leave home and don't come back. He said, "You're killing your mother. She's walking the floor at night. She's worried. Her blood pressure's through the roof, and you're killing her." He said, "Man, you put me in a place where a man's never supposed to be put, where I'm supposed to choose between my son and my wife." He said, "I'm going to have to take care of your mother, son. Don't come back here drinking anymore." And I didn't for 2 years. I'm sure I fussed at him when I left. I told him I'd leave in a week or two, and he said, "No, you're leaving today." And he handed me $100 and told me he'd drive me anywhere I wanted to go. Of course, I took his $100. You all know that. But no telling what I said to him. After I was sober, I was home one time, and my mother invited some of her friends over to take a look at it, me. And I realized that was her day. She had worried about me and done more for me, like show up when I was in those hospitals and stay in a motel room and come and visit me. And she didn't drive. My dad would come. There were times that my dad drove 100, 150 miles to try to get me out of jail, and when he got down there, sometimes I would fuss at him for coming and send him away. And so when my mother, to make amends with my mother, one day when she told some of her friends, "I got my boy back. I got my boy back." I was 38 years old. You can die from alcoholism when your mama's calling you her baby boy, and you're 38. But anyway, I knew what that meant. My mother was committed. She said that out loud in front of her friends. She believed that I had changed. She believed it. I went out on the porch. My dad was sitting out there reading the newspaper, and I said, "Dad, I'm sorry for all the trouble I've caused." And he said, "Son, all I ever wanted was for you to be okay, and you are okay." And that was that. That was never the same after that day with either my mother or my father. Much better, much better. So being trusted is what I've always wanted, I'm sure. But how about being trustworthy? I never knew what that was, for people to be able to believe that I would do what I said I would do, and that they could depend on me, because I had lost that a long time ago. And it's so nice to be to be able to be available and be accountable and be respectful and responsible. And it's because of this program. So I say that I have changed, and that's one way of saying it. But I've been thinking about that a bit. Of course, thinking's dangerous for me, but I was wondering: have I changed, or have we changed, or have we been changed? I really feel as though that I have been changed. This program has done for me what I couldn't do for myself, and continues to do that. I'm not afraid anymore. I'm not scared. I'm not ashamed of being an alcoholic. I love alcoholics. I hate alcoholism because I know where the behavior comes from. It comes from the condition. It comes from alcoholism. I'm grateful to find out what this big book and you people told me about alcoholism, and I got rid of those old ideas. And I found out I wasn't a bad person needing to get good. I was a sick person needing to get well. I found out I could accept my past once I understood how it happened and why and all that. And I could accept it without approval. I didn't have to approve of it. I just had to accept it. But the good news about this program is I never have to live like that anymore. These steps and the principles and the fellowship and sponsorship, you have showed me a way to go where I don't have to live like that anymore. And I don't want to. I don't want the old Gordon Rail doing business in my name anymore. My job is to keep that guy run off. Run off. And I appreciate you, and I'll be forever grateful. Thank you for having me.